Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Michael Traub to the Reboot Chronicles. He is the chairman of Stihl AG, one of the world's largest manufacturers of chainsaws and outdoor equipment. Those of you know, this is one of my fun areas. Founded almost 100 years ago, Stihl is one of the largest family-owned companies with a global network of 55,000 dealers in 160 countries and 20,000 employees who delivered over $5 billion in revenue last year. So this is not your normal family company. A serial rebooter, Michael has been transforming the company as it heads into the next 100 years of growth, innovation, and global expansion, which we will dig into. Michael, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, those of you that are on the video feed, he has a beautiful landscape of mountains in the background and a timber worker with a, looks like a steel chainsaw, but I hope it is anyway. So great graphic, by the way.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is. And that's the heart and the soul of our business, right? It's just, I think it puts it in perspective, kind of. You said 100 years ago we started.
Yes, exactly. I, anytime I talk to a 100-year-old company, especially one that's 5.1 billion in, sustainable revenues, especially one that's still private and family owned, I'm always curious, how do you stay competitive in a market that didn't have as many, private equity, public companies? You've got some competition with some big checkbooks out there. So how do you guys stay competitive?
I think it's that passion, right? It's the family is very close to the business. It's now in the third generation that they're working in the board, and there's a clear separation between external management, like myself. I'm not part of the Stihl family, and there are three people of the Stihl family that are on the board, and they keep the tradition going. They keep as well that passion for the family growing, and their aim is that the Stihl company is forever in the hands of their children as well, of the fourth generation, fifth generation. So it's a totally different approach than we find it in a lot of American companies where they're sold at a certain point in time to private equity or decide to go public at a certain size.
Completely. Yeah, two that I've worked with, Amway, multi-billion, still family owned, probably going to stay that way. Molex, they ended up selling out at about 7 billion at one point, and it's great to see a legacy go on, and it probably changes the entire. We've had a lot of public company CEOs on Quarterly Focus, so it's I guess two questions. We'll dive into culture first, but what's it like for you? You're a non-family member. You're not in the club. What's it like stepping into that?
Yeah, well, my big advantage is certainly that I grew up in the region as well. So I grew up in our headquarters is close to Stuttgart. I went to school in Stuttgart. And on the other hand, I've had a very global career. I spent 15 years of my life in the U.S. running a big corporate company, but as well a private equity sponsored company. I lived in Latin America. I lived in Asia. So I have a good understanding of the global landscape of the business, and I'm deeply rooted as well here in the region. It's like a coming home for me after many years abroad now to run Stihl back in my home country.
So an American like me would have had a hard time stepping into that role, it sounds like.
Well, I think that the challenge in a family company is that you need to understand. You work very closely with the family. And there has to be a very good chemistry. There has to be a very good alignment, and it's obviously easier when you understand the cultural background, family, the company, and people you work with here. So it definitely.
Yeah, what is the culture like of this brand? I early in my career, I was a hot shot at FedEx, one of their youngest managing directors, and we bled purple. And do you guys like bleed orange? I think is your color.
We bleed orange. Yeah, that's actually you see it with the timber worker in the background. Orange is our color. We had a big town hall.
It's funny because that was FedEx's accent color was actually orange. So orange and purple, Reboot and Stihl are actually a perfect match here.
we had yesterday a town hall meeting with 3,000 plus people live, And believe it or not, people come in orange suits for that.
Nice.
So one guy, or the people with Stihl tattoos, the people that it's it's a very interesting. So people really, a lot of people like to work here. We've got our average tenure in Stihl is 17 years.
That's really
Right.
high, especially as you
That's
benchmark.
especially compared to American companies.
Oh gosh. Yep.
I have a lot of events actually every year where I celebrate 25-year anniversaries, 40-year anniversaries, 50-year anniversaries with Stihl, and that's amazing. So people are they're very proud people, and they identify with the brand, they identify with the family, they identify with what we're doing, and want to be part of that.
Yeah, you see that more in manufacturing companies in the U.S. I'm a chairman of a
Yeah,
manufacturing company in Rockford, Illinois, so it's not like downtown Chicago. But yeah, you get
yeah.
those long-term tenures, and the it just seems like that. I mean, you mentioned tattoos, by the way. I did a search on that. I have never seen customers put tattoos of their favorite brand all over their body. I'd show a couple here on the screen, but that would unfairly those of you that are on the audio feed wouldn't be able to see it. But I mean, I don't see people putting Lululemon or Walmart or Amazon tattoos on their body. This is just amazing.
Yeah, when I joined a couple of years ago, I also didn't believe it till one of the first customer visits was actually in Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah.
We found a guy with a huge steel tattoo over his forearm. Uh, we've like that again. Go back to that timber work that's portrayed behind me. We provide tools and solutions for people to facilitate their work in nature, and they rely on us. They make money with that, and there's such a strong following. Right? This makes us very proud.
What's the you're number one in a lot of categories.
Yeah,
We're just railing on chainsaws here, but you've got tons of SKUs and products, and
yeah.
we'll get into all the product roadmap stuff later. But what's the secret to your staying power against all these well-funded competitors?
We believe that we understand our customers, our users, much better than they do. We focus on making the product continuously better. And we're a private company. We don't have to follow quarterly rules and take costs out and cheapen the product. We're also very proud, by the way, that we have 55,000, you mentioned at the beginning, 55,000 very loyal resellers, retailers across the world, 11,000 in the US. We don't sell to Home Depot and Lowe's because we believe that a product is only as good as its service. So there's a couple of the secret sauce, right? We believe that our products have to be superior. They have to work. We sell to people that make the daily living, landscapers in the US, forest workers, whatever, municipality work. And with that, you can sustain against much bigger competitors that might have deeper pockets, but less passion for what they do. We're very specifically focused on what we do.
Yeah, I mean, when I walk into, I'm a Home Depot Pro account guy, and so
Yeah,
when I walk in there, it's I've probably got every wireless power tool invented. That was
yeah,
when the new ones come out. Yeah, I'm bombarded with Milwaukee and DeWalt, but also a bunch of other cheap stuff that's quite frankly the price points are intoxicating for a lot of casual home
yeah.
users. But that must have been a big thing to say. Hey, we are not going to be drawn into the big box retailers around the globe. We're going with independents who can still service. That it was a pretty gutsy move, and then people say I've seen Stihl. They run TV ads around
Yep,
Christmas for chainsaws.
yep,
I'm like,
yep.
yeah, that's the same company. It's like what's the strategy here?
Well, it's very simple. We're a family company for family entrepreneurs. So
Ah,
we
like
we
that.
want to work with. We also, by the way, our largest customer worldwide, and they know it, and they should know it, is Ace Hardware.
Yes.
We've a big following there. We've a very strategic relationship with Ace. We've a very strategic relationship with John Deere dealers. A very strategic relationship with as well True Value with Do It Best. So we sell to
The old Cotter and
chains,
Company out
right?
of Chicago. Yeah. The
Right, but we don't,
if I had
you
to
know,
do a common
we don't want to
denominator with
cheapen the product. Sorry.
no, sorry, I didn't mean to overcall. I mean, if I did a common denominator of all those, they're local. I don't know if they call them franchises, whatever. But they're local, and they also most of them also have a service department, which is gone in most countries. Is that a common denominator for you?
That's correct. And call us old-fashioned. We believe that the product is only as good as its service. So
And in
we
this,
certainly
like
could
in
be a
this
much
country,
bigger company if we chose to expand distribution, but we believe that we got to stay true to our values.
yeah. So do most people fix their steel products? Because in a lot of countries I work in, people throw them out and just get the next cheap one that's got a better this and a better that. But is it because such of the high level of use, especially the pro grade guys,
Yeah.
that of course it needs to be serviced once in a while, just like your car? Is that the idea?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, when you look at a professional chainsaw that's used kind of 8 hours a day for 200 something days a year, obviously has a high need for regular maintenance, and things can go wrong. We have a lot of equipment that is 30, 40 years old. These are hand-me-down
Yeah,
chainsaws, blowers, whatever they are. So we have a very long tradition in believing in the fact that we don't have throwaway products. And nowadays, in the U.S. as well as in Europe, we've got that Right to Repair Act. You know, all this legislation that is coming up, which is fantastic for us, right? We have no throwaway product.
the Right to
We
Repair Act. I didn't even know about that. That's just strange. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just fascinated that someone would put a steel chainsaw in their will. So I'm going to think about this. I'm going to
Well,
have to do some
also
redrafting
that would
tonight.
be.
Both of my sons love my power tools, so so that's fascinating. So I'm sensing a higher quality product. But if I look at someone like, I'm a Midwest guy, Milwaukee Tool, they've been pro grade. At some point they chose to go into big box. I guess it was competitive reason. For instance, can I buy your stuff? Because you're really a DTC company too. You'll sell direct to consumers, right?
We sell direct to consumers in a couple of countries in Europe. We do not sell directly to consumers in the United States, but you can have an omni-channel approach that you buy online, you pick up in store, or you buy online and the retailer then sends it to you.
Gotcha.
The
And so can I buy
Yeah,
on Amazon or no?
you cannot buy our stuff on Amazon. Same
Yeah,
logic.
because that'd be like a big box guy.
Yeah.
So when you look at you've been doing a bunch of things, digital transformation, next gen products. We're going to run out of time. I can feel it already. But when you look at, before we jump into that, when you look at what are we going to build, what are we going to buy and acquire, what are we going to partner with around the world, and especially like core battery technology, you guys are like the automobile industry from the mid 1900s. You're vertically integrated. And you make everything yourselves. Do you
Mm.
see that shifting and pivoting as we're going into all these new next gen connected robotic battery products?
You're absolutely right. We what made us who we are is the fact that we control a lot of our components by producing them in-house. We have our own cylinders for the engine, our pistons ourselves, crankshafts, you name it, right? We have the
I just
largest
just lost the young audience. They don't
charging
know what a
factory.
crankshaft is.
Yeah, well, part of an engine, whatever. That's is not important, but
But that's
what it
amazing. You guys actually make all that, whereas the OEM ecosystem now, the supply chain is like everything comes in components.
yeah, but I think for the system to work and to work the way we want it,
Yeah.
that was the philosophy, and it worked fantastically well. However, the interesting fact is now all that great knowledge, all that great heritage goes away with battery technology. It's a completely new game. We need we needed when we started new partnerships. We were at that as well since 2006, by the way. So it's not a new thing. We know since a long, long time that
Right.
there will be a transformation happening, like in the car industry, where we move from a combustion engine to battery electric vehicles. Same for us in the private garden in the consumer world. That transformation has already happened. Most of consumers nowadays buy battery products because it's just much easier to use. Right, you don't have all the hassle that goes with it. On the other hand, we know that for professional use, we will need the combustion engine for a long time. So we believe in that dual technology
Yep.
leadership. Right? We want to do both. for battery, it's really a totally different approach. We have partners on obviously in cell technology, like the car manufacturers. We have partners on the electronic drives. Semiconductors become much more important, and the manufacturing depth is much less. So we're much more reliant on partnerships with other companies. So that was really a mind shift change as well for us, and we're still going through that. So a
Wow.
company that wants to control the quality that tightly normally wants to do with those freaks that want to do everything ourselves. So that's really a different ballgame.
Yeah, that's why I asked. It's a big cultural shift, number one,
Yeah.
and CEOs of other industries are listening in on this, going like, "All right, what can I learn from this?" Because it's all to me, it's about competitiveness. So that to me in your past gave you a competitive edge against competitors. You had a
Mm-hmm.
hardcore high quality supply chain that you
Mm-hmm.
controlled and owned. When you look at things like robotics, and you mentioned four components, right? So you got robotics, you've got batteries, you've got chips, and you've
Yeah.
got cell technology, because these are connected devices. Is that what you were saying?
They're connected devices as well.
So I can like have my little wireless lawnmower running around and I can watch it on my phone
Exactly.
from
Exactly.
Starbucks.
Or you can control geolocation, theft, anti-theft devices.
Huge in landscaping and professionals.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of that what we call connected technology is also a completely new ballgame. Software management, software coding has become a much more important part. When I look at our R&D teams today, they're already 25% of software guys, right? Whereas in the past we were the classical industrial engineering guys that
Exactly.
built combustion engines.
That's actually brilliant. So that digital transformation, as the big consultants call it, it's
Yeah,
how would you rate yourself? Because I know it's extremely challenging. How's that been going?
it is. I think that when I wake up in the morning, that's the first thing I think about. When I go to bed at night, it's the last thing I think about. How do I manage? How do I transform a company from the market leader at the 800-pound gorilla in the zoo in combustion technology to transfer that market share and that knowledge into the battery world? We're on a journey. Our share of battery product is already 25% of total business.
Well,
So we're doing well, doing well. We're growing every day. The market's also growing dynamically. Um,
yeah, I mean,
we're,
battery.
we're we're never satisfied. We can always do better, but we're well on that journey.
Seems like the battery home use in Europe is higher, as you've said, and
Yeah,
in the States not so much, because we have, you know, you call them the mow blow go guys, and
yeah,
where it's. But do you see I guess two things? Do you see the penetration of, I don't know if we call them battery anymore, just wireless
yeah,
technology increasing? We're trying to get more. There's a lot of countries are actually trying to mandate it, and I don't remember them
yeah.
outlawing the horse when the combustion engine came out. So I'm more of the life cycle evolution versus force feeding it on a market. But
Mm.
25, did you say 25%? That's pretty high.
It has grown. It has grown rapidly. Yeah,
So most of my wireless devices, they're not yours, but they suck. They're the latest ones, but they just don't last that long. If I'm out cutting trees, or I'm talking, the big pieces of equipment, not the
yeah,
drills. Those are
yeah.
fine. Those last too long. I forget to charge them sometimes. But yeah,
Mm.
I don't see the staying power for. I'm not a pro grade guy, but I know a lot of people are frustrated with them. Love the quietness though.
As well, here, I think the big difference between Steel and many of our competitors is that we make those products last. We make them as well for professionals. The recharge times of the recharge time of the battery is important, obviously, right, for your
That's the
productivity.
other thing. You're right. Yeah, it takes forever.
That's point one. Point two is how often can you charge a battery till it dies? Also, here we have a factor 5 or 6 against competition because we want those products to have the same quality standard as our combustion products. We as soon as you bring energy, like with mobile chargers, power banks, as well on the trailer of the mow blow guy, right? Then we strongly believe that also here our products are very suitable for professional use. As
Right.
soon as we got the energy on the trailer. and that's obviously the biggest challenge. In the past, they take their little gas canister of gas with them. They last them for a day. Now they obviously have to think about how do I use my charging stations on the trailer?
Yeah.
How do I what kind of system do I bring with me? So they have the ecosystems.
Yep. Yep. What are you paranoid about?
The biggest paranoia I have is that we miss that trend on the transformation to battery. Right? So 25% is high already. Is a good trend, but I'm paranoid about legislation. You know that like what happened
Uh,
in California.
yep.
Is California still part of the U.S. or is it
I don't know.
different?
I mean, California. I lived there, ran a lot of tech companies out there, and they tend to enact legislation too early, and then the ecosystem, as you just mentioned, can't catch up. They can't handle it. It doesn't equate. So it
Yeah.
makes it
Well,
really
I
hard.
also lived
So
8 years.
blowers, I think they've outlawed gas blowers, and that's like a
Yeah.
big part of the industry. We're getting geeky here, I know, but it's like, yeah, it's and countries as well. So that from a competitiveness guy, I can imagine that keeps you up at night a little bit.
Yeah. So that whole legislation, you know, that legislators do things to the industry, to the users, and they're not ready for
Not
it,
ready.
right? Or
That's
the
right.
infrastructure is not ready for it. So that's one thing that I'm really worried about. You know, let people use what's best for their work, and don't overregulate things that you don't fully understand.
You know, on the supply side, we've had a couple of guests on that have talked about the competitiveness of and too much concentration in the supply chain. Too much stuff coming from China. A lot of people are moving their businesses to India because of that,
Mm.
especially at the component level. So
Yeah.
batteries, lithium, titanium, all the things that are mined. And there's other companies like Ford and others that are saying, "Hey, we want to start doing that in the U.S."
Yeah.
And again, back to your point about regulations, like, yeah, well, we might let you, we might not, but how do you kind of de-risk yourselves? How do CEOs de-risk themselves from this
Mm.
too much concentration in certain sectors and geographies?
We have a factory in Virginia Beach with 2,600 associates.
Wow.
60% of our components that we produce
Yeah.
in the US are actually US sourced. So we are made in America.
Wow.
And the
So
audience
you're
will
ahead of the
appreciate how
trend.
difficult it is, right? A lot of people say assembled in the US and blah, blah, blah. We
Yeah.
are made in America with that. A very high mark. And you also see when you look at our advertising, we're very proudly talking about that. And even though our competitors always try to knock us off that, of that pedestal, we stand strong and are able to have that claim proudly that Stihl is made in America by 2,600 fantastic associates in Virginia Beach. So that's one thing. The other thing is we also have a factory in China, and we source a lot from China. We're very proud as well of our factory in Qingdao. However, we have decided in order to de-risk supply chains to build a new factory in Romania, where we want to especially cater to the European battery market.
Smart.
And we have factories in our home country, Germany. We have factories we're factory in the Philippines for some of our components. So we have a big factory in the south of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul, which also caters for the Latin American market, but also produces for export outside of Latin America. So we really have a global footprint with 8 factories in all regions of the world.
Yeah, I think we're seeing other companies do that too, like Volkswagen, for instance.
Yeah.
Sourcing, especially as they move into batteries and things like that. You've worked for some of the largest companies in the world before you came here to reboot Steel. Like Bosch and others, very
Yeah.
bureaucratic, very big companies. I think they're going to be on soon. But what have been some of your biggest challenges that we can learn from?
I think the biggest challenge that I went through was certainly the recession in the U.S. in 2008. I learned a heck of a lot of during
Which
that
one?
time.
2008 or
The 2008 one, yeah. They'll pick
yeah,
one, yeah. So, but I thought that 2008 one was a very significant change in my professional life, and And it was at Bosch, right? You said that they're bureaucratic. I don't want to comment on past employers, but
Not just them, but when companies get that size, so yeah,
I
but
know. But you know what? What we learned during that time is we had to become pretty agile pretty quickly, right? It was in the appliance industry at that time, and
yeah,
nobody built houses anymore. I think that the new housing starts went down to 200,000 from a
boom,
1.6, 1.7 million. So
right,
it was pretty traumatic, and
drastic.
I think the agility is a terrible word I actually don't like. But you know that kind of
Yeah, you
acting
guys were selling,
fast.
washers and dryers and all the stuff that goes into the home. It was
Yeah, and
huge,
it
huge
was
hit.
was and we had a huge responsibility, obviously, for a lot of employees and their families. So I'm very proud that we were able to, by adapting ourselves quickly and by reacting, but as well by investing against the cycle. Right? So a lot of people, our competitors, Whirlpool, Samsung, LG, GE, and whatever, at that time had to reduce their investments and their spending because they were public companies. We were at Bosch, a private company, and we could do quite the opposite. And so never waste a good crisis. So we could actually leapfrog a couple of things and have developments or go through developments and market share gains that we would have never been able to do without the crisis. So it was great to see. Look. Today I look back and said, what did I do in 2008 and 9 that was different? And crisis teaches you a lot of good things.
Yeah, both good and bad. What kind of advice would you give the next generation coming up through the ranks, people that may want to work for you?
I think curiosity is the most important thing in professional development.
Do you
You
think
know,
there's enough of it in business?
I I don't think so. I
Is
don't think so.
mediocrity
There's a
the
lot of
opposite? I'm not sure what the opposite is of that. A mediocrity, maybe, or conformity.
no,
Just go ahead.
but what I do, I talk to a lot of people, obviously, at Stihl, and a lot of people ask me, how do you become a CEO? And I say, well, it's kind of you can't plan it. There's a lot of you got to be at the right place at the right time. But if you're not curious, if you're not willing to do things that other people don't want to do, and if you don't want to step outside your comfort zone, you're definitely not going to reach it. So I look back in my early days when I had the chance to either I worked at Boston, go to England, France, or Vietnam, right? I went to Vietnam, right? Everyone said, you're crazy. You could live in London or you could live in Paris. Why do you go to Vietnam? And I said,
Yeah.
look, it was 1994. I said, I want to go to Vietnam because it will be a lot of fun. And I said, oh my God, he's crazy. But when I look back, what I learned in those many, many years, 7 years altogether in Singapore and Southeast Asia overall, I would have never learned that in England or France. And the same thing applies later on as well. I went when I was 35, I went to Brazil without speaking a word of Portuguese. Learned the language. That's what I mean with curiosity. Do things that are unexpected, maybe sometimes, but also push yourself outside your comfort zone.
That's the best explanation I've heard because a lot of people say stay curious and they don't back it up. So I am seeing a counter trend to that. These next gen people coming out of college or in their first second job. I guess two things: major corporations aren't reloading them as much, so that's
Yeah.
not their fault. But many of them are not choosing to go do the weird things, going to countries,
Yeah.
countries where you didn't speak the language. That must have been a
Yeah.
little bit cathartic for you. I'm not seeing enough of that. How do we kind of re-stimulate that in I guess, in the workforce?
Well, award the behavior. Right. When I
Uh,
when I when I see young people, young folks that come out of college and show that curiosity and say, hey, I want to do something. Give them the opportunity, right? Let them be crazy and go to countries that are difficult. We're opening that new factory in Romania, and we found a lot of fantastic young people that's right now. It's in that triangle, Hungary, Ukraine, and Romania, right? Northwest Romania, so it's close to the Ukrainian border. To say, oh my God, why should I live there and work there? But it's a safe place, first of all. And secondly, it's a fantastic challenge where you can learn to bootstrap, right, and build a factory from scratch. Who doesn't want to be part of something, right? Here in Germany, you can't do that. In other countries, you can't do that because the factories are there, and
they're
you,
done.
you don't you don't
Exactly.
see them built from ground up.
Yeah, I think that's a revival that needs to start happening. People are, I guess, one of the good things from the more work at home culture that's been going on is you can hire people all over the world and have these very eclectic teams.
Mm,
But there is such a magical thing about getting everyone together on a new project and building something, even if it's software. It doesn't have to be a factory. And somewhere in the middle there seems to be a solution. But I just feel
mm,
like it needs to come back to that.
mm.
And so, what kind of people are you guys looking for these days? Besides curious,
Yeah, besides curious, obviously we're a global company, and we look for people that are able to work in a global environment, and adapt fast, especially on our. I mentioned it before. In the past, we're looking for classical industrial engineers or classical marketing people, right?
and
Nowadays,
software and tech guys, which you really never
well,
used to be.
exactly
That
now
used to
software
be
with the
like a
digital.
tiny area for you. Yeah.
Yeah, with the digital transformation and building connected products, automatic robotic mowers, and stuff like that, battery technology. We're much more deeply embedded now into that kind of background, and need much more of that kind of background in our workforce than we ever needed in the past.
Sounds fun. Thanks, Mike. I want to thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Michael Traub, who is the chairman of Stihl AG, and this is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today. We will see you soon.